All right, folks, welcome in to Armchair Athletics, our first show on Queen City Streams, which Queen City Streams has always been the brainchild behind all this. Happy to be with you here with you today. I am Nathan Little, your host, and I am joined by the one and only Ray Lee Fletcher right now. How's it going, Ray?
It's going excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ray is one of my good friends, and just recently come off of a 14th Region Championship here in soccer. And we're going to have Mark Collett later talking a little bit about being he's the athletic director now at Leslie County after being a basketball coach, a principal for a while, and he's going to talk. I'm really interested what he wants to say about delegating an athletic department while COVID's going on. I know, Ray, it's been an interesting year for you, I imagine.
Boy, hasn't. Yeah. A lot of hurdles from the preseason, during conditioning and workouts. We've had to be very careful, had to be very cautious. A lot of stuff that we couldn't do that we wish we could have. A lot of stuff we were used to doing, we couldn't do this year. Had a lot of games canceled. It's definitely been tough.
Yeah, and this is typically when I started this, I wanted to be just a show that I get on and I talk to some people and do kind of like a news show. But really, I just want to have conversations. And I think, Ray, you specifically, me and you are, when I say that Ray and I are good friends, I talk to Ray no less than every day. I don't think I've ever in the past several months, except maybe one of the days you were up in Alaska over the break. I don't even know if we went a day then. It's just we Ray's in my circle and we talk a lot. Talk about what brought you to coaching soccer at Perry Central.
Well, I played for the program from fall of '02 to fall of '05, and of course, I left high school in '06. I've always been around the game. I played in college. After that, I officiated for 11 years. Officiated multiple state tournaments. If it was a high school soccer game in this region, I was there. And when I played in high school, a good friend of mine was Andrew Lunsford, the former coach. He and his brother were a couple of my best friends. We spent the night with each other. We went to camps together. And he, word started to get around that he was going to, make the move out of the program. And everyone thought, when all that was going on, that his brother was going to take over. And it was during dead period, I remember, of 2018. I get a phone call from my current assistant now, which is Brecken Harvey, saying that there's going to be a vacancy at the high school. And he said he'd been talking to a few people, and they were asking if I was interested. And, I talked to Eddie, former athletic director for Perry County Schools, and I was there at practice the next day. And, the rest is history.
Yeah, and that whole situation, I remember we were talking back and forth at the time, and you had said there was some interest for you, but before it was decided before Andrew's brother Justin kind of showed interest, and there was a lot of it was kind of, I think on the KHSAA website it even said Justin Lunsford
Yep.
for a little bit. So it was pretty, it was that far into it, and you're talking dead period is right before practice opens up for the year. And I had talked to you before all this, and you had said, no, I am not going to coach that team. I am not going to coach Perry Central. I'm not going to coach anywhere. I'm making too much money. A lot of people don't understand that reffing compared to coaching, unless you're like a big time like football program or something like that, and even then, you can make a lot of money refereeing. But was it since the program? Did you feel like some kind of sense of responsibility playing for the program that you should go in there and get the job done?
That's exactly it. The money you make from officiating, I won't go into numbers or anything, but they could pay me double what they're paying me right now, and it still wouldn't even come close. I officiate year round, where I did, and it's an unbelievable amount of money. There are some weekends it's $300 and $400 a day. It's insane. Um, but I miss competing more than anything. There were times I was there as a spectator, and just out of force of habit, I would always catch myself starting to pull for Perry, and but like you said, I did feel a huge sense of duty, I guess you could say. I was part of the first team that ever won the district tournament. That was my senior year. Um, and I've always loved the program. I've always loved the people that have been involved with it, the administration, and it was just something that I really couldn't pass up.
Yeah, and refereeing, it's also when you're coaching, you know, you don't have the ability to. When you ref, you show up, and I ref basketball a little bit, and I remember the referee assigner at the time was Tommy Hall, and he had said, look, you're not. There's going to be people yell at you. There's going to be people scream at you, but all you're there to do is the only person that you have to satisfy is yourself. You have to go out there and do a good job, and then you go home after it's over with, and you pretty much, and Ray's laughing at me right now. I think he knows where I'm getting at. But when it comes to coaching, there's no showing up, finishing the game, and going home and just and just counting your money and waiting for the next one.
I've had worse things said to me in the first 2 months that I became a coach than I did the entire time I officiated. And
Oh, really?
that's no exaggeration. No. Of course, you sort of, you build that thick skin when you're a referee, and like, you show up, there's no attachment. You show up, you do it, and you go home and you wait for the next one. But the only thing that really comes close as far as the intensity, I guess, is if it's a huge game. Like I said earlier, I've officiated several state tournaments, and when you're in the moment and you just think about all the time that so many people have invested for these students, all the sweat that they've poured into it, and the coaches. I mean, it really means a lot, to the people involved, and I got to experience that, firsthand when I started coaching. But you're talking about time invested. Goodness gracious, it's like a second full-time job while the season's going on, and especially this year, it was more so. We'd show up early to sanitize, stay late to sanitize. Take into account the time it takes to do the temperature checks and go through the questionnaires, and we had to have very stringent documentation this year of everything we did, everything we used, everywhere we went. It was more so. I would say I spent 45 to 50 hours a week just on soccer, in addition to my full-time job at the high school.
Yeah, it's wild. The way coaching, just and all coaches it's a labor of love for the most part. There's not a whole lot of when I refed, you speaking to just the way that things work when you're a referee. I can remember just doing like biddy league basketball on Saturdays, and they're it being really it's not super. I mean, basketball in Eastern Kentucky is always going to be somewhat competitive.
Sure.
There's always and there's always some people that are taking it a little more seriously than they probably should. But for the most part, there wasn't a lot. Expectations weren't really high, but you would stay there and do biddy league for sometimes I think one time I did about 10 games on a Saturday once and left with a lot of money. And then when it's I could relax though. Coaching, it seems like on top of all the strategizing and all the actual gameplay and stuff, there's a lot of like relationships that go into it that make it more of a psychological thing than a lot of people understand.
If I could tell you how many hours that I've spent outside of practice, just in the middle of the day or at night with my assistant coaches, just talking about tactics and who we're going to put where, how to counter this team. And you sit, and gosh, I remember before the regional tournament this year, Oh my gosh, I might have slept 3 or 4 hours a night just replaying, scenarios in my head. Um, Thinking about what could go wrong, thinking about if something goes right, how do we adjust our tactics, to protect our lead. And uh, I've got an app on my phone called Build Lineup, and me and Brecken and Jaden are just constantly, or um, while the season was going on, we were constantly just sending those back and forth to each other, and critiquing each other's, and eventually we would come to a final solution about it. And but it's not just the showing up. It's not just the sessions or the games. It's so much more, so much more. When all that's done with.
Yeah, and when you took over at Perry Central, I know you came in and they had a great, 14th region championship team. They won some games in the state tournament, and a big part of that core was still there your first year. But then after that, I want to, there's you won it again this year. I don't want to say the well dried up, but a rebuilding period, started fairly early on into your coaching tenure. And how's that been?
Well, the first year we had 14 seniors. When I say 14 seniors, I don't just mean 14 guys in the 12th grade. We had some absolute studs on the team. They'd played with each other their whole lives. They had played in camp together, on select teams together. We had so much talent, so much talent. And we won the region that year easily. No one even came close to beating us. I had all my subs in at halftime in the regional championship that year. If that tells you anything. And the year after that, we had five on the entire team come back. That's it. Nobody else. We had 19 on the roster that first year. When those 14 graduated, we returned 5. That was hard. We had 14 freshmen come in that year. And these guys were a few months removed, from grade school soccer. And you have to start 6 of them. They had to learn a lot in a very, very short period of time. But they came together excellently. It was tough. It was extremely tough early on, but we ended up winning the district, and we got the runner-up in the region that year.
Yep, it's tough, and this year you win it. And, the good thing about 14 freshmen last year is in 2 years it'll be 14 seniors. Back to kind of where it was. Where do you think? And I forgot to put the camera on me. I'm crazy. You can't see anything over here. It's wild, but it's what kind of challenges come with 14 freshmen?
Well, it's mostly psychological. They're used to kickball, and herd ball for the most part, and having to teach them a tactical system it's a huge hurdle, because a lot of times they're very confused. Something will click in practice, and then in a match atmosphere it'll just all fall apart. We've had that first year, we had some of the freshmen, we would look out on the field and they'd just be crying. That happened several times. They'd just be standing there, playing their hearts out, shedding tears, because they know that it's just so much, and they were so overwhelmed. And but as they say, with that adversity, they all really came together. And even this year, it was those freshmen are still just sophomores. So it's still there, and the first time in a state tournament.
Yeah, my wife Tiffany, she coached middle school basketball for a little while over at Buckhorn. She played for Randy Napier, so she's had some of that fire instilled into her. But she started coaching, and we used to consider it a good day, and it wasn't a good day if you win. It wasn't a good day. It was just a good day you got through the game and nobody cried
Yeah.
because it was just it's just that intense with younger kids like that and kids. And speaking, I'm a teacher myself, and for some of these kids, um, putting on that jersey and being a part of a team is the most at home that they feel anywhere.
That's true. Really, most of the pressure for them came from the legacy of the program. Um, at that point, uh, the dynasty was already established, I guess you could say, in the 14th region. And we'd always have to remind them in the locker room, this is what you're playing up to. This is what came before you, and this is what we expect of you. These are our expectations. And just having to live up to that legacy was really, really tough, for a lot of them. And we got farther last year than anyone even remotely expected us. They expect us, to crash out in the first round of district. For us to get to the regional final, and we had a tough game in the semifinal that year. We went to a shootout against Powell County, and for them to get as far as they did, I was extremely proud of them.
Yeah, and it's and this year, I remember you, Ray and I are both fairly competitive video game players. We'll get more. We're actually going to play something a little later, and you'll see how it comes out. But I remember we played a lot, and then after that first game of the season, you came back and you said, "Guys, I'm going to have to calm down, and I'm not going to play for a while because we're going to have to go back to the drawing board with this team." Talk to us a little bit about that first game and where you had to go from after that.
Okay, so we played Corbin, first game of the season, and we got absolutely waxed. Tactically, I got severely outcoached that game. The amount of talent that they have was unbelievable. Like they were a top 25 in the state team, going into that game, and I got it wrong from a tactical perspective. I got it wrong with my personnel, and we were just so outmatched. For that one game, it wasn't even funny. And I told myself, okay, if this is what we're going to be up against this season, I have to focus. I really, really have to dial in and concentrate. And we'd been working on a system. For anybody who's listening who may know a little bit about soccer, we played a pretty attacking shape that first game, a 4-1-3-2, and they would just expose us on width, and they'd swing the ball in the middle and have a triangle around that one pivot, and they just ate us alive in the shallow midfield, and we threw everything out, everything, our shape, everything that we had practiced, our personnel. We threw everything out, and I say, guys, we're going to have to play slower than this. We have to play simpler than this, because these guys are just sophomores now, and I think we were asking far too much of them. I really do. So we dialed it back to something simpler, something very defensive, something that we could teach, and something that I feel played to our strengths a little bit better. And from there on out, we lost a few more games, but we really didn't get blown out. We were always in it, and we won the region again, and we played a very good Ashland team in the first round. We took them to the wire.
Yeah, I was watching that one, and it seemed like you guys, you're right there, and then once it was, they scored, and when they scored pretty late in the game. And soccer, it seems like it takes so long for things to develop sometimes that, and then they scored again, and then you're like, what? I guess you think I've got to score 2 goals in 12 minutes, so I'm going to have to go all out offensively, and then you end up making it harder on yourself on defense.
Yeah. When it's playoff time, especially in soccer, of course, it doesn't matter if you lose by 1 or if you lose by 5. When you're chasing a game, you're chasing a game. Now, sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot by doing that, by kind of committing far too early. But that game in particular, we gave up a penalty kick pretty early, about 5 minutes in, and they scored. About 90% of penalty kicks go in, and that's an important stat to remember here in a minute. But they scored. We had gone down twice in the prior 2 games in the region, so we knew how to battle. We know how to win when we're on the back foot. We didn't change anything at that point. We just kept playing our game, and we equalized just before halftime, just a few minutes before halftime. And we came out in the second half, and we dominated the first 20 minutes of the second half. We ended up getting our own penalty kick, and it got saved. The goalkeeper from Ashland, I'd be very surprised if he's not All-State. He's unbelievable, and he made one of the best saves I've ever seen in all of high school soccer. And once they saved that, they got all the momentum from there. And they scored once, and we threw everything at them at that point, just trying to get back in the game. And we got exposed late. So, but the scoreline doesn't reflect how close and how competitive that was. It was a very, very even game.
Talk a little bit about. I said that we're both pretty competitive in video gaming, and we both, you a little more than me, stuck it out in the athletic ranks a little longer than I did. But when it comes to coaching kids, and you're an athlete, I know it's got to be kind of frustrating sometimes when you got a kid and you're thinking, why don't you just get it? I remember when I first started refereeing basketball. And I almost, and this is pretty hilarious, I almost dove for a loose ball once. Just because you're wired like that, you know what I mean? And it's my first game, and here we are, and these kids are scrambling for the ball, and I almost dove on it just because that's how my brain was wired to go for it. Do you deal with that a lot?
Yeah. More so when I was a referee. When I was a referee, how many times I wanted to just, trap a ball, that was flying at me. It's just like you said, you're just wired that way. But as to what you asked earlier about, the frustration that can come with, coaching a young team, there were times this year that, we felt that we were asking way too much of the boys. There were times I felt like the mean coach. It's a soccer movie, The Big Green.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There were times I felt like the mean coach.
Al Bundy.
Yeah. But it's just a matter of perspective. Sometimes you just have to step back and you have to realize, hey, these are kids. They're not that new, to they are extremely new to a high level of the game. But that's why we schedule hard. If you look at our schedule, for the past 2 years, even when we're trying to rebuild as a team, we always schedule the powerhouses. South Laurel, Corbin, Madison Southern, Prestonsburg, and just being exposed to that, I think it did wonders for us this year. I think it played a huge role in why we were so successful in postseason.
And you got to think that puts you in a good spot for next year, because this year you kind of had to reinvent the wheel at the last minute, and you threw these kids that played these hard games, and they came out on top. They beat everybody in the region to get there. And I know you guys talk about, you lose to Hazard in the district championship, and then that puts you against an undefeated Powell County team that, top 2 teams in the district go on to region, but you want to go in as a winner, because you have to play. You got a district championship, then you've got your first round game, and then your championship in 14th region soccer.
That's right.
If you can play, the winner of the district will play the loser of the opposing district. So you get to play a loser in there. So instead of having having to play three tough games back to back. You have one where you can, which nothing's ever get, but you don't want to play the three best teams available back to back to back.
Exactly. Losing in the district championship was that hurt. That hurt a lot. Um, Hazard had 7 or 8 seniors this year. Um, Powell County, I believe, had 7 or 8. Fletcher Central had 7 or 8. So it's like everybody around us was just loaded with seniors, and it's more than just talent. It's composure. Those seniors, they've been there before, so it's not a new environment for them, to win games. But yeah, going into the Powell County game, uh, gosh, we spent a whole week of practice just in anticipation of that game. They had the number one scorer in the state at that time. His name's Cole. And our whole game plan was just to stop him. And if we would have won the district, we would have played Jackson City, who we beat, I think, 8-1 earlier in the year. So, we'd have been right there in the championship. But losing district, I think, is why that we won the region. Because we got in the locker room the next day, and we told them, guys, look, I mean, what you're facing now is the hardest thing that you've ever faced as players. This team is not bad at all. They're extremely solid, well-rounded. If you win this game, it'll be the hardest game that you have to play on your way to state tournament. And we spent a whole week just planning for that one game every day. Live action drills, man marking. We tweaked our system a little bit to bring our fullbacks, which are your outside defenders, into the attack. And if we hadn't have lost to Hazard in the district tournament, we would have never made that change. So we don't know how the regional championship would have gone. I'm fully convinced, even though it hurt sorely in the moment, losing that game is why we won region, just because of the message it sent to the boys in the locker room, and they really came together, and they executed our tactics perfectly. Like I said, I'm fully convinced that's why we won.
Yeah, and I'm sure Conor McGregor wasn't the guy who invented this, but I heard him say once after he lost. I'm a big MMA fan, and I watched Conor McGregor lose to Nate Diaz the first time they fought, and he'd never lost before, and he took this fight on like a few days' notice, and the guy that he was fighting he had to go up in a weight class, but he wanted to fight. He wanted to compete. He's a competitor, so he goes up, decides he's going to take this fight, and he loses, first time ever. And they grant him an immediate rematch. He comes back and wins a 5-round war on points. And after it was over, he said, they asked him what he thought about, avenging his loss. And he said something to the effect that, I didn't lose. There's only two options. There's win and there's learn. And there's and I guess that's kind of what happened there, because you lost on the scoreboard, but you saw what you had to do.
Yeah, we saw where the holes were in our game, and we were really struggling offensively at that point. It's just like we weren't even knocking on the door against Hazard. I don't think we would have scored an open play if we had about 20 more minutes, in the district final. But we sat down and we watched the film. And we're like, we just need extra bodies up. We need an option, for our guys in the middle. If they get into trouble, they can hit width. And it's a gamble though, because you pull your outside defenders up. All a forward has to do is stick into that space, and you're stretched, and they can hit you wide on the counter. But it's a risk that we felt we absolutely had to take. Hazard, they defend against us anyway most of the game, so they kept one or two strikers up the whole time. So it sort of played into the system that we wanted to run against them. But like I said earlier, we would have never would have never noticed that if we had won because we wouldn't have analyzed the film. We would have just went back out, business as usual. But it's like you said, you either win or you learn. We learned.
So next year, where does this put you guys in the terms? I know you. I think you said you were ranked fourth preseason in the region this year. Do you think that this year that this kind of propels you to be kind of puts a target on your back again?
There's always a target on Perry Central's back when it comes to soccer. Always. Um, that doesn't change whether we're up or whether we're down. Um, everybody wants to beat us. Everybody wants to beat us. We've won 7 out of the last 9 14th region tournaments, and we've been in the championship game. The 2 other times we've lost to Estill County both of those times. But everybody wants to beat us because we're the team to beat. We're the program to beat. But all that does is motivate us. We tell the boys at the start of the year, guys, you got a target on your back. You have to play up to that. If you lay down, they're not gonna. They're not gonna even think about trying to pass up the opportunity. To beat you.
Yeah, and I know you played some football in high school too, and some American football. So
Yeah.
it's all football, I suppose. But you've got a couple kids that have moved over to the football team and have contributed there. And I know when Coach Dixon came over to Perry Central, I know you told him, "Hey, I'm willing to help. I want to get you guys some folks." And Brady Adams, one of those, Hunter Cheney, the other one Cheney, the kickoff specialist, Brady Adams, the place kicker. And both of them this past week came up big. Cheney put "Let's go" in the chat earlier, so he's excited. But he a lot of people don't understand the pressure that is on kickers in the world of football, in American football. Like when Perry Central beat Harlan County for the first time ever, and it ended up standing the go-ahead score. This game was 8-7 for a long time with Perry Central trailing, and Brady Adams went up, and you're talking fourth quarter, a 1-point game, and now they've got an option to kick a field goal for 3 points, and they hit it, and I mean the crowd goes nuts. But that is some serious pressure.
My first game in high school was against Whitley County. Back in the day, Perry and Whitley had a pretty good rivalry. We played them first game of the year, went to overtime, and they got the ball first. They scored. Their kicker steps up, hits the PAT. Our offense goes in, and they score. And everybody's looking at me. I didn't really know half the guys. I had come out for the team maybe 2 or 3 weeks prior because they needed a kicker. And here I am. The first game on the season is completely on my shoulders. Fortunately, I made the kick, and then our offense just didn't score. The second time in the second round of overtime. But that wasn't the last high pressure situation I was in, and you're either the hero or the villain. In that situation, you're either on top of the world or at the very bottom. It's tough.
It's tough, and it's one of those rare moments where, for the most part, you've got a lot of variables when you're kicking. You got the snap, you got the hold, you got the people that the defenders coming at you trying to block it. But for the most part, it's if all of in a vacuum, it's you versus that ball. And it's rare that you have that in sports. Very often, it's usually, you said PKs were about 90% guarantee at the high school level. Because that's one-on-one. It's player versus a goalie or something. It's very rare that it's just like it's me in my mind, and this ball is in front of me, and I've got to get it there. And talking about don't want to short our man Hunter Cheney either, because on the kickoffs after Perry Central's last score, he kicks one that goes. It is really high ball, and he kicks it to where it lands almost next to the sideline. So the guy has to run over, grab it at the sideline. But since it's coming down so far, he muffs it, and Perry Central recovered it. And that basically, iced the game. And the kicking game is and Harlan County, on the other side of things, they didn't attempt a single extra point all night. It was all 2 point conversions, and they didn't punt the ball all night. I don't know if that's the Harlan County way, or if maybe they've not invested in that kicking game. But it's big at the high school level if you have that.
Absolutely.
And everybody at the college and NFL level has it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember back when Perry played Hazard. We played. It was my junior year. Like I said, it was first year I played, and I step up and I'm just a bag of nerves. I'm scared to death. I was like 130 pounds back then, and I'd been pretty good on the kickoff all season. And I step up. I don't know if it was the moment or what, but I squib one right to DJ Hoskins. Takes it to the house, and everybody's looking at me. I felt this big. Now, we ended up winning the game. I think I hit 7 PATs that night, but for that first moment, I know I was the most hated guy on the field, and that just comes with the territory. When you kick. So.
Yeah, people kind of seem to just take it for granted. They just assume it's an extra point. It's going in. It's a kickoff. They're gonna kick it really hard, and the other team's not gonna be able to run it back that far. But it's another world of pressure.
Coach Keith Prey told me one time. He said, "Look, son," he said, "no one's going to ask if the ball was laces out or not. All they care about is if it sails through those uprights. So it's not a fair position all the time. You can get a bad hold or a bad snap, or I've been cracked, several times on some really bad snaps and high snaps, and it's like you said, no one cares about the hold, no one cares about the ball. They just care about it going through the uprights.
Yeah, I used to have some holding duties, and it was there. If things went south on the snap, I was actually told throw it to the kicker, and he's just gonna take care of business. And first time that ever happened, he got laid out.
My senior year, when we were playing Hazard, that happened. Brandon Willis was my holder, and the snap comes in. Let's see, what I didn't know is I didn't know what the term fire meant then. It was, I only went to practice like a day a week, because I played soccer too. So the snap's bad, and I hear fire. I'm like, oh shoot, So I take off. I'm just trying to get out of the way, and Brandon Willis, he had scrambled over to the right, and I'm standing there on the pylon, and he throws it to me. My goodness gracious. Next thing I know, I'm waking up, and my helmet is like 10 yards away. I had gotten absolutely cracked, from behind, and didn't know anything about it. It was awful. But again, that wasn't the last time, that I took a lick on a PAT or a kickoff. But no, it's not fun. It's not fun at all.
And last show we had Kelly Tahuna on. Talked a little bit to him about this in volleyball. We've not been on for 2 weeks because I've been in Facebook jail. I mean, shenanigans, absolute shenanigans. But anyway, it seems to me when it comes to soccer, and you look at other countries and how soccer is developed over there, I say over there, I'm kind of mean overseas, but even south of our border, in Mexico and South America, it seems like they're so much further ahead of us. But it also seems like just American culture. It seems like the best athletes are going to play football or basketball. Some of them are going to do double duty and play some soccer. But it seems like seems like we miss out on a lot of the best athletes on the soccer field. And do you think maybe if we ever like what would happen if a school here in Eastern Kentucky that every big time athlete in the school signed up for soccer, how far would they go in the state tournament?
It's hard to say. You've got got certain players who are some of the best players in the world. Lionel Messi, Luka Modric. These guys are like 5'5", 5'6". Um, but they're really agile. They have a really low center of gravity, and they're strong. You have to be strong in soccer. A lot of people don't really understand that. There's a lot of contact, that's allowed in soccer. Anything with the shoulders is almost universally legal. Anything, as long as you make contact with the ball first, is almost universally legal. So if you're not strong, you're going to get knocked off the ball easily, very easily. There's a degree of physicality that a lot of people just don't even understand. They just don't even understand. Now, of course, you have your quote-unquote archetypical athletes, like Cristiano Ronaldo, for example. Harry Kane is one. These are guys who are on the athletic ability of some of your best NBA and NFL players. But as far as soccer in America and why it's behind, we've tried to Americanize it. We've tried to do things our own way, and it's not working. The pay-for-play system in club, you may have a kid who can't afford to play club who is an absolute prodigy, and you have a kid who can't play dead in the Western. His parents have money, and he gets a spot on the team, and that happens way more frequently than I could ever sit here and explain to you. And I think it's an absolute shame. Now, of course, the women, on the other hand, we're the World Cup champions, and a lot of that is because of Title IX. We're one of the only countries in the world with a university system, for women's soccer. And in other countries, they have women's club teams, but they don't get near the amount of resources that they need, that they deserve, because it's all for the men. But here, because of Title IX, they get to play at a level that that other countries don't even come close, to being able to play. And I think that's great for them. But the pay-for-play system is really what's holding the men's side of it back.
So it's kind of like so the club ball system, you think really slows down soccer. I mean, this is Ray and I did not talk about anything. We just said we're going to sit down and talk. I've heard a lot, but the women's soccer we're on par or better than the rest of the world.
By far.
And the men just seem like to barely scrape by at the international level. But when you say Americanize it, other than the pay for play deal, what do you mean by Americanize it?
So we have the MLS, Major League Soccer, and it's extraordinarily bloated. In England, France, Germany, all the top leagues in South America as well, you have a promotion and relegation system. So if you're in the top flight, if you're in the Premier League, for example, in England, the bottom three teams will get demoted to it's called the Championship Division. And the top three in the Championship go up to the Premier League. So there's always that incentive. There's always, because there's a lot of network money, in being in the Premier League. And in the MLS, you don't have that. If you stink it up, then you just stink it up, for that season, and there's no consequences. So it leads to a great deal of complacency, I feel. I think we should look to Europe. I think we should kind of model how they do it. They're obviously doing it right. They're obviously doing it better than us. So, for us to catch up, promotion relegation system, and eliminate pay for play.
The Brecken says the whole system of club academy has to be overhauled for us to be a solid competitor in the World Cup. So I guess that's what you're getting at.
Yep.
And it seems when it comes to other sports, I mean, America's at the top when it comes to everything. You know what I mean? And soccer is the number one watched sport in the world. More eyes on soccer every year than anything else. And when it comes to athletes, for the most part, soccer athletes internationally make more money than you'd even think some of your biggest paid NFL or NBA stars do around here. They're among the top. Always interesting to look at those lists because you've got guys. Excuse me, you got guys like um, Tiger Woods, who is making more money than anybody. You got guys guys like Floyd Mayweather, and then you've got Cristiano Ronaldo, all these big name guys from these sports, and it seems like there's a handful of them that have all the money, and then everything else kind of goes to the wayside for everyone else.
Yeah. Whenever PSG, Paris Saint Germain, whenever they bought Neymar from Barcelona, um, his club release and his salary could have bought you the top 15 players in the NBA. One guy. And I mean, just to, that just shows you how much money that there is in soccer in Europe in particular. They're constantly investing in it. They've got some clubs have board owners, some clubs have family owners, individual owners, but um, I mean the amount of revenue that you can make from being in a top flight European league is unbelievable.
Yep. Money in sports will always be a hot topic. Right now with the World Series going on, I think I saw a stat that the Tampa Bay the Rays their um, the entire squad the entire team uh, they pay them as much as just a couple players on the Dodgers get, and they're both in the World Series. I don't know if you watch baseball, but last night I stayed up and I was nodding off and watched the end of that when it was a walk off. Uh, the They were down 6th, 7th in the ninth, and come out and they had two guys on base. And they rock one to right field, and the guy bobbles the catch. One guy scores, and then another one. They wave the next one home, and he kind of holds up because the ball is there, and then the catcher drops it, and he just slides
Oh my
right in,
gosh,
and that's how they walked off. Oh my goodness!
I hate to see it.
But and did that to the guys making all the big money. Money's a lot of money in sports, and sometimes you got guys like Tom Brady who've been the best quarterback, among the best quarterback in the league for a decade or so or more, and he's never even really been paid like it.
Well, we've had a lot of talent that's gone abroad in recent years. You know, soccer um, for years, not just years. I mean, for decades, All the best talent they wanted to keep home. Here in the MLS. Um, I think some of the players that did go abroad and had a lot of success. Brian McBride, who is my personal favorite player of all time, he played for Fulham and Everton for the vast majority of his career, in the Premier League, and he was unbelievable. When he played for the U.S. national team. So it's really good to see that starting to happen. But they were holding a lot of their best talent back by keeping them here, in the MLS. Um, and there are no American coaches in a top flight European league because um, we decided that we were better off making our own licensing system in the USSF. And it's an unbelievable amount of money to coach a professional team. You have to have at least a B license, and it's $5,000. In Europe, if you show the aptitude, I think it's like $50. They're more focused on the talent than they are the money for the coaches as far as getting them licensed and stuff like that. But the pay to play, pay to coach system is absolutely killing us.
It seems to me, and I'm not, I am. I enjoy watching soccer, especially live soccer. I've not watched a lot not watched a lot on TV unless it's World Cup time or unless I'm keeping up with highlights. But it seems to me like MLS is kind of seen as you know kind of a bottom feeder when it comes to big time soccer. I remember, Zlatan. He there was this guy that was, and I couldn't even tell you, but there was a guy in MLS that was coming, and Zlatan goes to MLS to make a lot of money towards the end of his career because it's an option. He's a guy that they can make some money off of, and he's a guy that can get out there and perform still at MLS because the talent level is different from what's in Europe. So they said um, someone had claimed to be the best player in MLS, and they asked Latan about it, and he said, "Yeah, well, when I was his age, where was I at? Was I in MLS? No, I was, I was in, Premier League or whatever. So I guess I mean, what do they have to get away from the pay? What would it take to get instead of our players going abroad and doing well somewhere else? What would it take for them to look to us?
Honestly, that ship has sailed. Those birds have flown. It's never going to happen. And a big reason is because we don't attract the best coaches here. If you have a UEFA license in Europe, you can coach anywhere in Europe. If you decide you want to coach in South America, they'll look at your UEFA license and think, okay, this guy's got the skills. He's got what it takes. If you want to coach in America, the first thing they say, well, what level of USSF do you have? It's like it doesn't even mean anything. And it's, like I said earlier, it's because we're just trying to do it our own way. And it all comes down to money. But the MLS is looked at as a retirement league for the most part around the world. You have guys like David Beckham, Nani, Zlatan. They've all come here because their name still carries weight. Although, gosh, I think Zlatan was like 38 or something when he came to MLS. He was for the most part done playing at a high level in Europe. He was on loan to Man United for maybe a season or two. I don't really remember, but it's clear he was out of his prime. And as fantastic as he is, he was 38, and when they were tallying up the goal of the year, they had 5 picks, and he had 2 of them. I mean, that just goes to show what a top flight player in Europe at his age then can do in a league like the MLS.
Wild, wild stuff. Before we get off here, we're gonna take a quick break, get set up, get Mark Collett on the line, and then after that, we're gonna take another break, and I'm gonna beat Ray to death in a few video games. Gonna beat him to death. He's gonna wish.
Happen.
He's gonna wish that he never showed up here. But anything you want to say? Any shout outs or anything before we take a quick break and get Colin on the line?
Shout out to my team, of course. I'd be remiss not to do that. The wall that you were backed up against and what you accomplished this year. And it was hard to find the words in the moment yesterday after the game, but what you guys accomplished this year was extraordinary, and people will remember it. I'll remember it the rest of my life. Credit to my assistant coaches. They were there every day, putting in the time, putting in the work. Our parents, fans, administration, my wife, all of you, you all made this possible. So I want to thank you all for that. I just want to let my players know how proud I am of them.
All right. More from Ray Lee Fletcher later, and we got Martin Collett coming up after the break. Before we go there, I gotta give a couple shout outs to some sponsors. You guys check them out. Rep Sports, Raise Energy. If you like energy drinks, you need some pre-workout, go to Rep Sports and then use promo code RAISER, RAISER. It'll get you 15% off. 15% off. And if you like wrestling like I do, collar and elbow wrestling, collarandelbowbrand.com. Head over there. You get 10% off with promo code RAISER, RAISER. Thanks for those guys for supporting us, for supporting the program, and go save some money. Rep Sports, Collar and Elbow Brand, 15 and 10% off respectively. We're going to be right back after the break. squared up, get my face looking as pretty as it possibly can. But Nathan Little here, back in action. Rayleigh Fletcher with us again, and now we are joined on the line by Mark Collett, Leslie County AD. How's it going, Mark?
It's going well. How you guys doing this week?
Pretty good, healthy. Ray just won a 14th region soccer championship, so he's had a pretty good week.
Feeling good.
He's having a pretty good week. I've listened to you guys for about the last 20 or 25 minutes, and I want to go ahead and preface my interview with, it sounds like Coach Fletcher knows a lot more about soccer than what I do about basketball or any other sport. So I may be a letdown in this interview.
Oh, I remember when I first started, when I've been friends with Ray for a while, but whenever he starts talking about soccer and he starts spitting out numbers and shapes and stuff, I just let him go. I just let him go because I've got no chance keeping up with him.
That's what you have to know. And I heard him talking about how special this week was, and that's what it's all about, coaching. You know, you have these random days that ends up being a lifetime memory when you win these big championship evenings, and your teams and your parents and your coaching staff can all share that, and that's something that you'll always have and nobody can take away from you.
Extremely true. Yeah, it's about trying to get the boys to believe in themselves. That's the huge hurdle. I told them so many times this year, I say, guys, I know you're the best team. But you have to know you're the best team. You have to. There's nobody that's going to lay down for you. You have to go out and earn it.
Yeah.
This.
Go ahead, Mark.
This season two has just been such a unique challenge for all the coaches to have to maneuver through this. Everything we have to deal with the regulations, with COVID, and on top of coaching, I joke with some of our coaches over at Lester County. I said, you've become ticket salesmen, you've become bus monitors, how many kids can ride a bus, you've become nurses, and checking temperatures and engaging symptoms every day. So it's been a whole new realm of responsibility for coaches this year.
And Mark, you used to be in the coaching game, got out of it, and now you're back as an athletic director. When you took over as athletic director, did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into with the COVID stuff, or were you kind of shocked that it's still wreaking havoc as it has?
Never imagined it, Nathan. Never imagined that it would be at what level that we're having to deal with today with just the continuing, almost walking on eggshells every day. And you're trying to keep your team safe, and you're trying to host home events and trying to keep, your fans healthy and fans safe. But, coaches have always, we're a unique bunch. We've always had to be aware of the health aspect of our kids. We take those health courses every couple of years. We're trained in CPR, how to use the AED, how to monitor our facilities for safety. And so, kind of part of coaching, the forefront of your thought has been, the player's safety always anyway. So this is just taking it to an extreme measure, but it's something that the coaches have just had in their minds anyway every year, because our kids' safety is always number one in everything we do, every practice, every game, every trip we take.
Yeah, Ray. I've been in contact with him, and the last couple of weeks, last 3 or 4 weeks, Ray, it seems like your blood pressure is always about and when always about to top out, and you go in a district tournament, and one of the members of our district in soccer, they went red, in Fletcher County, and you're talking about teams that are going red right when things are popping off, and when it came time, they had there's some tough decisions to be made. Our in Perry County and Hazard, I know the health department had said, hey, we probably shouldn't play these, and I think Fletcher wanted to play, if that was right, Ray, and but KHSCA said, hey, I know they're in red, but if you don't want to play them, you're going to forfeit. So it's kind of so you don't want your kids to forfeit, especially when I know the red county thing is a big deal, but at the same time, if you're, you're in Orange County and there's not a single kid on your team that's sick, it's hard to
Yeah.
tell them to forfeit to a team in another county that's dealing with that. And I think the solution, Ray, you didn't have, they had to play Letcher had to play Hazard in Wolf County.
On the boys' side, yeah.
Yeah.
Letcher played Hazard at Wolf County. Um, see, really, what it came down to is, the KHSA was saying it's an independent decision in the district. So the teams who didn't want to play another team who was in the red, they were getting punished, while the teams who wanted to play in the red,
Mm-hmm.
were getting rewarded, and that's really what it came down to. We've been fortunate in Perry County to have excellent administration. I'm not just saying that. All of our guidance came from them. The KHSA hasn't really, said a whole lot about it. Very little guidance, but like I said, we were real fortunate over here in Perry County.
I'm not gonna knock on the KHSAA, but it seems, well, maybe I will a little bit. It seems like they kind of got everybody going, and then just said, figure it out, figure it out. And I know I'm not barking up the wrong tree when I'm talking to you guys. And Mark, you're kind of on the opposite end of that because you are in a county that's in the red, and you made the decision recently to shut all athletics down for a little bit.
We did, and I probably am not the most popular guy in the history of time over here right now, and probably don't even run for office here anytime soon. But we felt like it was the best decision, the safest decision for all of our kids involved. And I'm a sports guy. I'm sitting here right now watching the Chiefs and the Broncos are playing. I watched the World Series last night, and I'm a basketball fanatic, but when you have to make the decisions for the safety and health and the health of all the kids and all the coaches and all the fans involved, it's a tough decision. But we've been fortunate to have, just like Coach Fletcher said, an administration who really supports everything that we're trying to do. And we're trying to give it every effort we can to have sports. And that's just another for superintendents, for ADs, for coaches, for principals of schools. This is a whole new situation that nobody has ever went through before, and it's something that you've got to plan for what you would normally do, but you really have to have a backup plan because any day, you have to change those plans. You have to adapt, and you have to, have a strategy and a situation to come out of something that none of us has any background in.
Yeah, and the stakes are so high with this stuff too. You going into it, and I see, and I'm a sports guy too. Just like all of us here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to. It was. I can't tell you guys how crushed I was. One of my favorite weeks of the year. I'm probably a bigger basketball guy than anything else, but my two favorite weeks of the year. Number one is the Mountain Classic over at WYMT and with them, and then the other one for me is the Sweet 16, and with WSGS Radio, we get to go up there and we get to broadcast every single game of the boys Sweet 16, second row of you're in press row there, right next to the court on Rupp Arena. There is nothing like it, and we're a week away last year, and they pulled the plug on it. And that was when I really realized, kind of what we were dealing with.
I was going to say the same thing. That's when that it got real for me. Is whenever the girls' state tournament was happening, it stopped. The boys' state tournament was first postponed and then canceled. The SEC tournament was stopped almost in mid-action. That's when it kind of got real for me. And in the grand scheme of things, and again, like you said, Nathan, we're all sports guys here, but in the grand scheme of things, sports is tiny in what we're dealing with in the world right now. But to think about how these kids have emotionally been affected in all this. I mean, I've got to go to South Laurel girls basketball. Probably had one of the biggest wins in school history in the first game of the girls' Sweet 16, and had a great shot at maybe winning that thing. and then it was canceled the evening that they won the first game. And so many kids lost out on their seasons last year, this year. So many kids have missed a game here, missed a game there. Our volleyball team in Leslie County was a strong favorite to win the district tournament, and we had some unfortunate circumstances last week that kind of forced us into just canceling the rest of their season. And it's heartbreaking for those kids. And again, it's minute in the grand scheme of things, but for what that kid's involved in and for what that parent has supported for years and spent money on and took to games all over the country, it's a devastating thing for them.
Yeah, I remember last year I felt so bad for South Laurel's girls, and then for Hazard's boys, because it had been so long since Hazard's boys had won a regional title, and they had so many seniors on that team. And just to hear him talk after the game, that's in Kentucky, if you're a basketball player, you're wanting to go play on the floor at Rupp someday, and that's what you want. And for those seniors to not get that shot, it's so tough.
Yeah, it's devastating. And like you said, here in Kentucky, you grow up of hitting that last second shot in your backyard on that ball goal that's on a wooden post. You dream about playing in Sweet 16 as a kid, and to have that, taken away from you. And again, it's a small thing in the grand scheme, but it's awful for our kids that's been involved, and it's emotionally devastating for them, and it's something that we're trying to work through from an athletic director standpoint. You really become stressed about all the events that you've got going on, because you're really having to monitor, the safety of everybody, from your players, coaches, to the fans that are there, from your staff members who are having to work gates and concession. It becomes then a big time stressor in just the managing of the whole event and to keep everyone safe and healthy. And we're just hoping and praying, as everybody is, that we can kind of continue to move out of this and get more normal than what we even are today.
Yeah, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this, but I was talking to former coach, football coach Perry Central, Ovi Kennedy, when they were having the rallies, the let them play rallies in Frankfurt, and trying to get Catch Say going. He's like, man, I want sports too. It's like I want to see them. I want to see them do it safe. But if we open things up and just do it like the way we always do it, no one's going to care. When their grandma dies. It's no any kid that would go out and play, and as much as they love it, I'm sure if they get infected and brought that home, they would they'd take that back in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. And we all, from the kids who are participating to the adults that are participating, we all have folks in our family who are vulnerable with various health issues, and those are the folks that we really got to watch out for, and we've got to kind of keep them away from this. But on the upside of all this, athletics, Coach Fletcher can echo this, and any coach you have in here, athletics is such a molding and such a maturing thing for every boy and every girl that participates in athletics, and it so prepares them for what they have to do in life. If it's a job, if it's taking care of your family, any responsibility. I have some kids that'll message me at random, and they'll say, "Coach Collett, thank you for that 15-minute rule. I made everybody be at practice 15 minutes before we were supposed to practice." And they said, "Thank you for that 15-minute rule. That gets me to college class on time. That gets me to work on time." So, those athletics is so much more than just going out there and playing. And, people argue during this time that they're just playing a game. They're just playing a game. Yeah, they're playing a game, but there's so many other things that are going into that are molding that young man or that young woman into what they're going to become as an adult.
Yeah, I've got I'm a teacher teacher through the day, and well, I guess now a teacher through the night too. This
Yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
wild time, but yeah, I've got some kids in my class that athletics are something that kind of keeps them on the righteous path too. Like if
Sure.
they and you can see, I've mentioned it before in conversations, but one kid I won't say his name, but he was a basketball player, and
Hmm.
if basketball season was going on, I could get that kid to do whatever I wanted him to do. When it came to
Yeah.
homework, when it came to being to class on time, when it came to not finding ways to get excuses to do stuff, he got it done because he knew
Yeah.
that if he got it done, he got an opportunity to be on the team, to do something he loved to do, and as soon as basketball season was over, the it got a lot harder.
And that's it. There's a lot of kids that are lacking that strong adult role model in their life, and that's what a coach provides for. And it's a reason for a kid, like you said, Nathan, to come to school. It's a reason for a kid to get the work done. It's a reason for the kid to uh, not get out and do something on a weekend because they know that if they get in trouble, that you know they have their teammates to answer to and their coaches to answer to. And there's more to it than just playing the game.
Yeah, it's sports are great for everybody. They're definitely deemed as optional right now during a pandemic. But the life lessons that come with them are big. I'm big on. I get on a couple message boards and talk local sports. And one thing that comes up all the time is well, a kid transfers in and all of a sudden they take playing time away from some other some kid that's been there for a long time. And I always go to that and I'm like, well, there might come a time in life when you're up for a job interview and somebody comes in, and if they're you're going to have to fight for it.
Absolutely.
If you're up for a promotion, nothing's handed to you. And sport, and when it comes to on a basketball court or a soccer field, I'm sure Ray and Mark, I'm sure both you guys will test. You put the kids out there that are that are prepared to give you the best chance to win. And Ray, you mentioned just when it comes to seniors, sometimes you got some seniors out there that may not be the best athletes out of the whole squad, but they've been out there, they know how to win games, and there's just you have to be ready at any given time, and you get your name called and make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it, is the team culture. If you coach Perry Central Soccer, you're expected to win the 14th region. It's that simple. I mean, um, like I said earlier, we've won 7 out of 9. We're not going to, take steps in the other direction. We're looking at being a competitor, at the state level, and just putting those young guys in that situation, it forces them to grow. They become better leaders. They become better decision makers. They they learn to fight and scrape for playing time. And just like Coach Collett said, it makes them into better people. Overall, we've got a kid on the team. He's the student council president. He's a he's a fantastic leader. The young guys, I've had private messages from some of our freshmen. How can I be more like him? You think you can get him to talk to me one day, after practice, and just stuff like that. It really makes it all worth it. All the time that you invest.
Mark, do you ever get the coaching bug again now and then?
Hey, listen, mate. I'm not going to say never on anything. I do. I miss it. I enjoyed it a lot. One of the driving forces behind taking this, vice principal job and the athletic director job at the high school over at Leslie County was to get back in sports a little. And I've got 3 kids. I've got 3 boys, a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 3-year-old. My 10 and 8 is baseball crazy. and I have to, just, maybe later on in life I may get back into this coaching, but I've got to follow these guys around as much as I can and watch them play and support them in everything that they're doing. And They turned this, I say all the time, they turned this basketball guy into a baseball guy. That's why I was up at 11 o'clock last night watching the World Series. But, I do miss coaching, and there's just, and I'm sure Coach Fletcher can echo this, there's just such I feel like everybody, if you're at work, if you're coaching a team, even in your family dynamics, everybody likes being part of a team and having others to rely on and a common goal to try to reach. And I miss that about coaching. I miss the camaraderie with wanting to just beat everybody I go play. But whenever we have a 14th region coaches meeting, to sit around and laugh and talk to them and enjoy that and to have that competitive friendship with those coaches that I got to become friends with throughout the 10 years that I helped the boys basketball and the 8 years that I head coached the girls. Just all those things and just seeing your kids improve and grow, not only on the court, but in the things they're doing, when they get a scholarship, going to a college or whenever they get a 32 on the ACT, just seeing those accomplishments from your kids, and you're being one of the first people that they want to come tell whenever something good happens for them. And, I miss it and maybe down the road, but I kind of like where I'm at right now. I get to be involved in sports, but I get a little more free time as well to kind of chase these three boys around.
A lot of people don't understand that coaches have lives outside of. I've seen. I've known several coaches, and they'll decide. They'll get out of it, and they'll. A lot of coaches just coach till they die. But there's some that I've known that have got out of it a little younger, a little earlier, and people will say, well, I'm sure they're just priming themselves for a position somewhere else or this or that. But I mean, it's a big decision, and sometimes sports take up more of our lives than sometimes we want them to. But it's a hard habit to kick. It's definitely a hard habit to kick. And Leslie County seems like the culture over there is so tight knit. I've been over there doing basketball games for alumni nights, and you got John Newell out there taking pictures, and you got tons of people in maroon at center court. It just seems like a great culture to be a part of over there.
It is, and Coach Fletcher said that key word, culture. And that's what changes your team from being almost like business-like to being a family. And that's what you have to have. You have to have your team, your support staff, your community has to almost be a family that's invested in that program. And I was really fortunate whenever I head coached. I had a girls team that there was strong history and there was strong tradition in. And like Coach Fletcher said with his soccer team, it was expected for you to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams every single year. And I love that. I love going in the first day of practice on October 15th, thinking that we were a contender for the district and the regional championship every single year. And, that just, with our younger grade school programs and with a couple coaches who really invested their time and their lives into our AAU developmental programs over here, I just kind of got to reap the benefits of it. I was fortunate to have a great group of hardworking girls that, came through the program. They were part of it from the time they were in about 3rd grade, and the coaches, Coach Wendell Wilson. I'm sure you guys have heard that name. He coached for about 31 years over here and almost invented girls basketball pretty much here in him and Randy Napier here in the mountains. And, I just got to kind of jump into that tradition, and I was fortunate to be a part of that. And it's task. You got to have that task of upholding that tradition. And that's something that can at times be a little stressful, but hey, it's a joy to be thrown into that tradition-rich program and to get to carry that on.
if you had to give any advice to a new up and coming coach, what would you give to him, Martin?
You know, do your thing. Be who you are. Connect with everyone. You've got to. So many times, young coaches want to be the hard disciplinarian. The end all be all. You've got to see everybody's side. And I see what kind of change. And this is probably crazy coming from a coaching standpoint. But when I first started coaching, I didn't have kids, and I was probably much harder to deal with than what I was later on when I had kids. You're dealing with somebody's baby out there. If it's I don't care if you're coaching C-team basketball and you've got a 8-year-old or a 9-year-old out there with you, or you're coaching high school and you've got an 18 and 19-year-old out there with you. You've got somebody's baby out there. And, you've got to treat them as if it was your own kid. And, just also at the same time, hold them accountable for everything that they're doing. And you kind of went this direction earlier in a question that you had. If you give anybody anything, they're going to expect to be given those things forever. It's hard work, and it's consistent hard work. It's good attitude. It's a teammate kind of attitude that you got to look for in your kids, whether it's a senior or a freshman or an eighth grader you brought up. But and probably lastly is enjoy it. If you are fortunate enough to win a district championship or a regional championship, look around, listen to everything, and enjoy that. My first year head coaching, I played Perry Central in the district and the regional championship against, the legend, Randy Napier. Had done everything, seen everything, been everywhere. And he told me before the regional championship, he said, enjoy this. He said, his first year coaching, he got to the regional championship too. And he said, hey, this is going to be easy. I think I can get here every year. And it took him about 8 or 10 years to get back. So he said, really enjoy this and take this in. And Coach Napier has been somebody that has called me and congratulated me in big wins and pretty much consoled me in some tough losses that I had. But to new coaches, enjoy any opportunity you get, because you never know when that chance is going to come back around, because you've got to be good at what you're doing and you've got to have some good luck on your side too.
Oh yeah, I can. Whenever I think about that, I think of Dan Marino. One of the greatest, quarterbacks of all time, and he got to the Super Bowl pretty early with the Dolphins, and he always said that he kind of took it for granted. He just assumed, assumed that he'd get there eventually, and he never made it back. So, take it in. It's a big part, and especially, now it's for a long time the 54th district. For girls basketball, it seemed it was Perry Central and Hazard, Perry Central and Leslie County, Perry Central, Leslie County, and now Hazard's been getting better. They're competing. They went to the I guess the semis last year and went to the finals the year before that. And then Buckhorn snuck in there, and I know Leslie County fans might not want to remember that one, but Buckhorn got in there and tucked down Leslie County. So things are getting a little more. Wins are a little harder to come by in the 54th district now for girls.
It is, and when you're sitting over here at Leslie County, you're dealing with Perry Central and Hazard. We're two tradition-rich, sports-minded groups of folks that you're going to have. It's both Perry and Hazard are going to be teams that you're going to have to play well, and you're going to have to be good to beat year in, year out. And Buckhorn has seen those successes in boys basketball, and I've always said success breeds success, whether it's from different sports or it's across genders, from male to female sports. And Coach Andrew Blank over there at Buckhorn has done a really good job at kind of feeding off that early success from Coach Noble and Coach Hoskins and the boys. And it's a tough district. And, if you make it out of this district into the regional tournament, you're probably going to be one of the top 4 favorites to win the whole thing in the region because you've had to get out of this tough district.
Yeah, I would. I couldn't tell you. I know on the boys' side, I can remember when it was not Estill County in the 14th Region Championship game, but I probably couldn't tell you many times in the past past few decades that someone from the 54th District hasn't been in that title game on either side. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come by.
It's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, in various years, district in both boys and girls basketball, probably the majority of the years here in the mountains.
Yep, it's been so strong, and now it seems like over in the 13th region with the South Laurels and the Harlan counties and Bell County for a little bit there, with Macy Morris, it seems like the 13th region is getting pretty formidable when it comes to basketball. I think a lot of the premier basketball in the mountains happens over there right now.
It is, and we dealt with Macy Morris for a long time whenever I coached, and just a phenomenal player that I almost feel like evolved that 13th region basketball into, again, like you said, not only in the mountains, but even as we talked about earlier, state contenders. South Laurel and I've got to throw North Laurel in there too. I'm close to Coach Mahan over there at North Laurel. Those are 2 teams that not only think they have a chance to win the 13th region, but have an opportunity, with an okay draw in the Sweet 16 to have a shot at making some noise up there in the state tournament.
Oh yeah, it's and to think, even with Macy Morris and her dad, Coach Lewis Morris. I mean, they've got some 54th district roots over there, so it's still
Yeah.
apple not falling too far from the tree with that one. I know he coached at Hazard some, so it was but yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. When you were coaching at my wife still gets tickled at it, and I'm sure you have to deal with conversations about it a lot. But it was you were either playing Bell County or Harlan County one year over there at the WYMT.
We were playing Bell County.
Okay. He knows where I'm going. He knows where I'm going. But and they were just pouring it on. You know what I mean? They were they were dominant, and they were going to show everybody. They were out to show everybody something, and you called a timeout. And I always, in basketball, I've always liked to sit right behind the coach's bench just because I like to hear what they're saying. And I'm more of a student than a spectator anymore. I just kind of like to take it in, especially I can give me some stuff for the radio on any given night, but you had them in the huddle, and my wife just started dying laughing because you told them that you told your girls that if they didn't pick it up, you were going to call WYMT and tell them to put Andy Griffith back on instead of keeping with this.
That's a very true story. First of all, I love the Andy Griffith show, and probably that evening in that game, it would have been much higher ratings if WYMT would have put the Andy Griffith show on, because we weren't playing really good at the time. But I had a pretty good player, Katie Moore, and her supporting cast at the time too. We just ran into Macy Morris in Bell County. We were having a really good evening, but that's a good one. I've heard that, Nathan. I've heard that story. You must have told that to a lot of folks, because every time that I would go over to WYMT for the round ball previews, whoever was doing sports at the time, that's the first thing they wanted to say was the Andy Griffith quote.
I can tell you, I don't know how many people were around me at the time. I know myself and my wife were, and I think my man Jim Frazier, I think he's retired down to Florida, but I think he was there too. But yeah, my wife has told that story way too many times, and it's a funny one. It's a funny one, and just shows what it takes to motivate kids. Sometimes you got to threaten to take their TV time away.
It does. I'm not real smart, but I've got some good one-liners.
That's what I'm talking about. But we're gonna before we get off here, I'm surprised that the cell phone service has lasted long. As Rayleigh can confirm here, we are down. We are underground. We are underground in the
Hey,
dungeon, and
well,
talking to somebody from Leslie County too, where there's very little service.
I've not moved a muscle. I've sat in the same spot the whole time here, so we've hung on with this cell phone service.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Good conversation with you, Mark. And before we go, though, is there anything you'd like to talk about or any shout outs you want to give out?
Just obviously all of our kids and our coaches over here at Leslie County, and I thank them for all the hard work and all the just how observant they have been, how compliant they have been with everything that we've thrown at them. Almost something new every single day. But just good luck to all the teams, all the coaches out there, not only in our district here, but our region. And we're facing so many new challenges. We're not only coaching; we have that unknown of what tomorrow is going to bring to our team. To the health of our team, to the health of our team's families and our coaching staffs, and just good luck to everybody as they kind of push through that, and wish everyone well. And I want to thank you, Nathan, for letting me get on here and talk a little bit. I'm one of these guys that all my assistant coaches that have ever coached with me said they got to have a buzzer on me because I start talking and they want to buzz me whenever I talk too long. So I could probably stay on here till midnight talking with you, but thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure. And I would enjoy it any other time you need somebody to come on with you. I'd be happy to.
Oh, I'll definitely give you another call. When I started this and a few weeks ago, and I kind of wanted to do the, have people call in and have coaches on and talk to them, but you don't, when you're just doing, there's a lot of shows that do that already. I did it with WSGS with Sports 101, and you get in, you talk for 10, 15 minutes, you talk about a game, and then it's over with. I'd like to get in and have these longer conversations and stuff. And I gotta ask you this because you said you watched World Series last night. I was watching that too, and it was on late because I'm an old man, and I was nodding off through it. But what a finish to the end of that game! What a finish!
Well, everyone on ESPN today and everything else said that's the wildest finish to probably any baseball game, especially in the World Series. And it was unbelievable. Like I said, my two oldest kids are baseball crazy. My oldest, my 10-year-old, definitely is. And he's kind of pulling for Tampa Bay, so he was pumped and all that went on. But that was just a crazy finish and something that anybody that is especially baseball kind of guys, but any sports people at all, we'll remember that one.
Yeah, I had my little girl on my lap, and I was watching it, and I'd nodded off, but when he hit it to right field, and the announcers popped up, it woke me up for a second, and and I was conscious enough to take in what was happening. But you see him score, and the way the ball was hit, and I'm like, okay, well they're going to tie. They're going to tie it. Then they throw it out to the catcher, and he bobbles it, and the guy just slides right on home, and everybody goes well. And Ray and I were talking about money earlier in sports. Tampa Bay, they're in the World Series, and they've done it on a budget compared to the Dodgers. And anytime that I'll always root for the underdogs. I mean, I'll say they're underpaid, but they probably make a lot more than all of us do combined. So,
I guess I'm rooting for Tampa Bay too. Obviously Cincinnati, and they get eliminated. Probably the Braves, because whenever I was young, all I had was TBS, and all we could watch was the Atlanta Braves play. That was the only baseball team we could find on TV. But when they got eliminated, you got to pull for that underdog, and it's tied up 2-2, and they're probably here in about 30 minutes getting ready for that first pitch in Game 5.
Oh yeah, and there's big stakes too, because you go down 3-1. That's a tall task. It's a tall task for anybody to overcome. So in the 11th hour, they they score 2 runs, take the lead. Heck of a way to end it. But Mark, yeah, thanks for calling us. Thanks for letting us chat for a little while. We'll get you back on here and talk some more. We're about to. I assume we're about to fire up basketball season, but you just never you never know.
I hope we get to, and I wish everyone the best. And to get started, tomorrow's actually the first official day of practice, and we hope for health and safety for everybody around here. We'll get to see those mountain classics, and we get to see those district tournaments, and we get to see those random Tuesdays and Thursday nights turn into something special, like Coach Fletcher was talking about, the memorable championship win, those random nights that we get to remember the rest of our lives as coaches and players.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we thank you for joining us. And for you folks watching at home, we're going to take a quick break, and Ray and I will be back and get into a little some more shenanigans here. But thanks for you guys for watching on Armchair Athletics. All right, here's what everybody came to see.
We back live?
The show, yeah.
For all my players and coaches who have never seen me play, we've heard the stories.
As much as I hated this league. Raise up. Head the father. Ray, you still be in here. Yeah, Ray, you had some
King TDD. Thomas.
Evo. Evolution Championship Series fighting games one time or
3, 2, 1, go!
oh, I knew better. Garbage.
TDD wins.
Bags, or it doesn't count. We got some watchers. So tell me,
Stop the battle.
Competitive
King
specs.
TDD Thomas.
How big's the mental game play into this compared to like a soccer?
It's more short term versus long term.
3, 2, 1, go!